I used to work for a television company in the Philippines, and I often covered horror stories. So I had the chance to interview paranormal experts, including pastors who would cast out unclean spirits. I wasn't expecting a horror story during an out-of-town assignment in Lucena. We were there to feature feeding programs and medical missions supporting relief operations after Typhoon Reming. When we arrived, I was with my cameraman and about a dozen male doctors and dentists. Our assigned holding area was a large old house besides a huge tree in a far-off province. Since we were all men, there was a rush to claim rooms. I ran upstairs to secure the master's bedroom so I could have the big bed to myself and stretch out comfortably. When I entered the room, my cameraman stopped at the doorway and refused to go inside. He said he would just stay in the other room with the doctors. I found that strange because I saw fear in his eyes when he looked at the messy bed inside. Still, I felt lucky to have the room to myself, so he stayed down the hall. The room had a large window overlooking the big tree outside. It was cold, so I didn't even need a fan. That night, just as I was about to sleep, something happened. In the middle of the night, I couldn't move. It felt like something was pressing down on me. I turned on the lights immediately and tried to go back to sleep. With the lights on, I could clearly see the large tree outside in the moonlight that seemed to be waving at me. I lay down again, this time with the lights still on. When I closed my eyes, I saw a large figure on the ceiling. Long hair, long fingers, wearing a long dirty white robe like old statues of Mary. I couldn't see the face because the hair covered it. I could only see it when my eyes were closed. When I opened my eyes, it was just a light bulb staring back at me from the ceiling. As I shut my eyes, I couldn't move again. The figure looked like the girl from The Ring. It was there again in the ceiling, moving closer to where I was lying. Its large right hand began strangling me, and its other hand with long fingernails was stabbing the left side of my chest. I gathered the courage to rebuke it in Jesus' name. I prayed silently, and then I was able to move. I grabbed my Bible and read Psalm 2 out loud. A missionary once told me that Psalm 2 wards off unclean spirits. The figure disappeared and I was finally able to sleep. Later, I felt the need to use the restroom. Since many people were downstairs and the bathroom was always occupied, I went outside to urinate. The moonlight was bright and I could see the large tree clearly behind the house. The next day at 4 a.m., I had a quick breakfast and saw the pastor's wife in the kitchen singing Christian songs. I wanted to ask her about the room, but didn't want to miss our ride to the medical mission. At the mission site, there were tents and makeshift operating rooms for circumcisions, dental work, and minor procedures. I felt unusually exhausted all day, like something heavy was on my shoulders. The doctors downstairs kept teasing me, asking me who I was fighting with last night. I thought they meant that I was snoring out loud, so I brushed it off and continued interviewing patients. That night, back in the same room, I noticed a very old cabinet, probably over 100 years old, with its doors nailed shut. When I went to sleep, it happened again. The same figure, the same strangling and stabbing. I fought it off again with prayer and scripture. My phone kept ringing, but whenever I answered, no one spoke, and there was no registered number. This continued for 3 days. Every night the same torment. Every night I fought it off with prayer. On the 5th day, the head doctor asked to speak with me. She said that when you're doing good work for the Lord, evil sometimes tries to interfere. She shared stories of strange encounters during past missions. She also told me something shocking. The doctors downstairs had seen me standing on the bed, spinning rapidly, then collapsing. She said there was no cell phone signal in the entire area, yet I kept insisting I was answering calls. The head doctor contacted our office pastor, who advised to send me home before something worse happens. I was allowed to return to Manila early and not complete the supposedly 2-week coverage. When I went back to the house to pack my things, I checked my phone. Zero signal. The doctor spoke the truth. So why did it keep ringing, and who was I talking to? I saw the pastor's wife again and complimented their early morning worship. She then told me that the house was haunted. It wasn't theirs. They were just assigned to stay there by their church. She told me the original owner, an old woman, had died in the very room I was sleeping in. The figure I saw matched her description. An old woman with long hair and an old long dress. She also said the old woman was buried outside the house, as was the custom in those areas. The 100-year-old cabinet held her clothing. During her death, the caretakers nailed it shut and did not make the bed, which is why it was messy. I went outside and I realized the yard where I had been urinating every night was actually her grave. It was too dark to see her tombstone. The large tree beside the house was the marker of the family's burial ground. In that province, they don't use cemeteries. They bury loved ones in their orchards. I confronted the pastor's wife, asking her, "Why are you only telling me this now?" But the Bible teaches forgiveness, so I packed my things and prepared to leave. Cooler heads should prevail. I simply waited for the network's vehicle that would bring me back to Manila and finally put an end to this nightmare. This is part 2 of my experience at a haunted house in the Philippines. In the last story, we left off with me waiting for the team to pick me up and bring me back to Manila. I went back inside and packed my bags. After all that I went through these past 4 days, I was relieved that I would leave all these horrors behind me once and for all. I brought my bags down to the main living room as I didn't want to stay another minute inside the haunted bedroom where the old lady died. I also didn't want to go outside the orchard with the large tree, as that's where the bodies were buried. I was still feeling very tired inside the house, as if something was draining my strength in ways I couldn't explain. It's like I was donating blood and felt lethargic. It was around 3 p.m. when I sat on the sofa and I heard a knock at the main door. I answered, and to my relief, it was some of the male doctors and dentists who were scheduled to go back with me to the city. I was glad to see their faces, but then was shocked to see outside was pitch black. It was nighttime all of a sudden. I wondered what happened to the time, as I remembered sitting down for only 15 minutes. I looked at my watch and it was 9 p.m. already. I looked around the house and saw the windows were dark. It was nighttime indeed. I also wondered where the pastor's wife went, as she was just in the living room with her 2 kids. It was just me and the houseboy who was in the living room. The doctors told me that I needed to move my stuff to the church building, which was about 2 blocks away across the grassy road next to the house. It was there that I will spend the night and leave with the party the next day to go back to the TV network in Manila. The doctors went ahead to the church, and I was tasked to clean up after dinner. It was just me and the houseboy that was left in the house since we had to clean up afterwards. After brushing my teeth and hoisting my backpack onto my back, I asked the houseboy if he could accompany me to the church. He said no, as he was watching TV. I was angry and a bit shaky already, but I mustered enough courage to set foot into the darkness and go to the church where safety would meet me. It was not completely dark, as there was a full moon. I could see the shadows of the trees, the tall grass silhouettes, and the cross of the church from afar. I focused my gaze onto the cross, as there my freedom from these horrors await. I was already enjoying the cool breeze, the crickets chirping and the leaves rustling, such a soothing calm to my soul. I then began to start panting as my backpack began to weigh heavily on me. I also noticed that I had been walking for an hour, but never getting to the church, which was only supposed to be 2 blocks away. I checked my watch and it was 12 midnight already. How could that be? Then things turned for the worse. I heard another set of footsteps along the grassy path I was crossing. It sounded heavy, like that of a large animal, maybe a large horse. I stopped walking and the sound stopped. I started walking fast. The steps gained pace. My heart starts pounding, nervous sweat pours out of my brow. The moon, which lit my path, now seemed so terrifying. I could feel that I was being watched from up top, like there were eyes looking down on me. I slowly cocked my head to my left and looked up. I saw two large red eyes like hot coals looking down on me. It was dark, but not quite, as I can see a large head with dagger-like teeth, pointed ears, and a grotesque tongue. It seemed that the creature was smiling at me. It looked like a cross between a rabid dog on a large horse's body, with spikes all over instead of fur, and it was all black. I could see the animal, but I could also see right through it, as if it were transparent in some parts, but solid in others. Since it was grinning at me, I smiled back, turned my head, and went on along my way to the church. This time I began to gain ground. Every step made me move forward, closer and closer, until the cross looked like I was inside the church grounds. I had finally made it. Inside the church, I was greeted by 3 pastors, and they asked me what took me so long, as 2 or 3 hours had passed and the doctors had already fallen asleep. I told them what happened. They led me to the upper room where the altar was. In the altar area, I saw my cameraman, who was also waiting for me. I was informed that the pastors would conduct a casting out session, an exorcism, to expel any unclean spirits that had been bothering me and my cameraman since we arrived. One pastor asked me if I was feeling anything odd. I told him about the tiredness, loss of sense of time, and the stabbing pain I felt on my left side where the old woman pierced me. The other pastor asked my cameraman the same question. He said he felt intense pain on his left side and back. The 3 pastors then began to do a praise and worship, reading parts of the Bible, and laid their hands on the both of us. They commanded the demonic spirits to go out of us. I could not remember exactly what was happening to me, but I could see my cameraman's body contorting intensely. I thought his bones were breaking from the sound. It was a miracle that he was still on his feet. In my case, I began to kneel and began coughing profusely, like there was invisible phlegm coming out of my mouth, but there were none. Every time one of the pastors would command a spirit to go out, I would continue to cough. My cameraman began to contort his body, arms crackling, spine twisting, and neck clacking. The entire session lasted for about 45 minutes, and then we both felt a weight lifted, or more like a veil. It was like the past 4 days we were underwater, but now we could truly breathe. We felt so tired, so we called it a night. I insisted to sleep on the altar beneath the cross of Christ, not out of fear, but out of gratitude for the Savior who has cast down strongholds and broke chains from this demonic oppression. The room that housed the altar had a large open window big enough to see the moon and starless night from the outside. As I lay down in my sleeping bag beneath the cross, large bats suddenly did a flyby to partially cover the moonlight, and the fluttering of the wings seemed to bid me goodbye. Early the next day, we got in the van, and I did bid the place goodbye. When I reached home, I felt an intense need to go to the restroom. Once inside, after using the toilet, it was all black. I vomited. It was also all black. I don't know what the black stuff was, and I don't want to know. But what I do know from that encounter is the following. 1. There are no haunted places, only demonized people where you are influenced to see and feel things that are not there. 2. The Bible speaks of unclean spirits or demons. They take shape of familiar people to deceive. I believe that specter took the form of the old woman in that place. And 3. Jesus Christ has the power over all evil. A few years ago, my husband and I booked a place somewhere in Bulacan. For context, Bulacan is an island in the Philippines. I was pregnant with our first daughter at that time, already showing. I do believe in supernatural things, but not to the extent that I ever thought I would actually experience something myself. My husband, on the other hand, barely believes in any of it. I'm also not new to strange experiences. I've had things happen to me before, and honestly, I have a lot of stories I could probably share. On the way to the place, we realized we forgot to bring salt for cooking. We stopped at a small roadside store to buy some. We paid around 20 peso, and the vendor handed us a huge plastic bag filled with salt. Not a normal amount, it was a few kilos, big, plastic, heavy, and full. We laughed about it while driving away. We even joked about what we were supposed to do with that much salt for just 20 pesos. At the time, it just felt like a funny coincidence. When we arrived, the place looked beautiful. It was a small glass house surrounded by trees, very quiet and isolated. But something already felt strange even before we got inside. There were caretakers waiting for us. Around 5 of them, all looked close to our age. What felt unsettling was that none of them spoke. Not a greeting, not small talk, not even a smile. They just walked towards us, took our bags, and silently led the way to the Airbnb. The whole time, no one spoke. No expressions, no eye contact. It felt off. My husband and I even exchanged looks because it was so unusual, but we brushed it off thinking maybe they were just shy or tired. The moment I stepped inside the house, the uneasy feeling got stronger. There was obviously nothing wrong, but the air felt heavy. Something seemed wrong even though everything looked normal. Without really thinking about it, I opened the bag of salt and started sprinkling it around the doors, the windows, and even around my bed. My husband asked why I was doing it, and I honestly didn't have an answer. I just said I felt like doing it. Looking back now, I still don't understand why that was my first instinct. We cooked dinner, tried to relax, and eventually went to bed. Sometime late at night, I heard a faint sound outside. Tick tock tock. At first I told myself it was just insects or branches moving. I stayed still listening. The sound came again, slow, rhythmic, fast, then no rhythm. I didn't understand it, but it was too deliberate to ignore. I whispered to my husband that I heard something. He didn't respond right away, and that's when I realized he was already awake. Then we heard wings, heavy, powerful, flapping directly above us. Not like a bird passing by. The sound was too big, too close. Each flap sounded strong enough you could almost feel the movement through the roof. My chest tightened. Then came the footsteps. Clear footsteps walking across the roof. Slow, dragging steps, moving from one side to the other. Something was up there. Walking, stopping, then walking again. An occasional sound of long fingernails scratching the iron. I kept whispering that I was scared, and my husband quietly told me to stay still and be quiet. When I turned to look at him, he was lying on his side, already holding a knife in his hand. He had been awake the entire time. That scared me more than the sound outside, because it meant he had been hearing everything too. Neither of us slept that night. Every little sound made us freeze. Sometimes the footsteps stopped completely, leaving a silence that felt heavier than the noise itself. And suddenly it would start again, followed by scratching sounds above us. I just lay there, pregnant, trying not to panic, waiting for morning. As soon as daylight came, we packed our things immediately. No breakfast, no hesitation. We left and drove straight home. We paid for 4 nights, but stayed for only 1. We rarely talk about it now, but sometimes I still think about the salt. How we randomly forgot to bring it, and how the vendor gave us an impossible amount for almost nothing. And how, without understanding why, the first thing I did when we arrived was spread it around the room. Looking back, I honestly feel there was a reason we were given that much salt.